Greetings. What's up, everybody? This is your brother Sylvester Moore Eel from thctrust.org. Now, in this particular video, I'm trying to raise funding. So don't run away yet, because as I always do, I'm going to pass some good information. But I'm trying to raise funding, and I'm not asking for anything for free. I never ask you for anything for free. But what I am asking you to do is, if you can afford to do it, if you're an entrepreneur like myself, this is part of my entrepreneurship. But in your case, if you're entrepreneurship and it's not going to impose on you and you think you can benefit from affiliating with thctrust.org and having full access to our templates and priority access to me for as far as responses go, then please join our $32 per month subscription. Is coaching sessions, I still do them. They're $75 a session. I try not to go over an hour, but I don't really put a time limit on it. And I think there's something else I wanted to touch on before I got into this. I guess that will do it. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this lesson. And the first thing you do is, if you don't already know, go visit www.thctrust.org. And when you get here, create a free account down here if you haven't already. And then we will log in because we have an account. Now, by the way, if you join the $32 per month subscription, whether you click the link in the email, you click the link at the bottom of this video, what I'm going to do is, when I see that payment come in, I'm going to look for your I'm going to look at your email address, I'm going to look at your information, then I'm going to go into the database, I'm going to find your account, and I'm going to update your permissions. So you have to give me about 12 hours to 24 hours, and then once I update your permission, you will get full access. And when you log in, you will see what I see, which is you will have full access to the website. So not only will you have the basics, you will also have access to the advanced topics. Today we are going to go over here and we're going to click this tab that deals with public officials. I've been looking forward to getting back on this topic for some time because I've researched so much. And the key is, when you research, I want to encourage everybody, learn to take notes if you don't already do so. I'm not the best note taker, but the better I get at taking notes is the better that my demonstrations, the better that my presentments, and the better that everything comes together. So develop some type of mechanism for taking notes, whether it's on your computer and whether it's in a notepad. I've been compiling all of these notes on anytime I'm listening to something or somebody gives me some information that deals with public officers. I go pull out my notepad where I keep my notes of public officers, and I put that information in there so I can go back and recall it when I need to really focus and study on, study that situation. And then I go back and look at my notes. Really, this is what thctrust.org is, these different things, what we're about to read now. So I hope you can see the evolution in my research, but it's also it's also an expression to you to be meticulous in your research. Don't cut corners. Don't be lazy. Yes, sometimes it's tedious. Sometimes you're going to research one thing and it's going to take you off over here, and then that's going to take you off over there. And sometimes you have to do that. You have to just keep going through that because you're actually putting the bigger picture together. Okay, without further ado, let me go ahead and jump into this. Now, I'm going to try to set this up so you can understand it. The perspective that I'm coming from is my experience, which is dealing with these public officers. When you're dealing with private processes or administrative processes, things that's pretty much putting the power in the sovereign individual, and you actually enforcing your rights, you're going to be met with some type of resistance. And you really have to know what you're doing to be able to get these things recorded. So the first thing you have to learn how to do is how not to get emotional, how not to don't cause a scene. Don't get frustrated. They're going to try to frustrate you. Don't be frustrated. Keep it business. I even myself have to learn that. I'm not even the best at that. Me, I know not to show my ass or get frustrated or get upset, but I'd be like, if you want to be a smart ass to me, I'm going to be a smart ass to you. That's probably not the best way to handle it. The best way is probably just to be real professional and smile and be cordial. I don't know, but I think that's what I want to try in the future. But anyways, what really is going on is you have to understand the way that, the way I understand this, and I'm thankful that my father taught me how to play chess at a young age. I think it made me look at problems and problem solving in a different light. So I've been fortunate to have success when it comes to recording, getting things done in presentments and processes. I haven't always had success, but the more I've learned how to apply these things, I've had success. And the reason is because, for example, when you're playing chess, most pieces have a very unique way that they move. They don't all move the same way. They all have a unique way that they move. In order to master how to make that piece move, you have to understand the limits and everything that what that piece can do and what it can't do, right? And the circumstances in which that piece can do those things. It's the same thing when you're dealing with public officials or when you have something important that has to interface with the public and you know that there's going to be resistance. You first have to know what are the requisites to make this particular instrument or document recordable, and then what are the requisites, what is this person, who's responsible for recording it, right? So you gotta not look at what they're presenting you on a surface. You gotta be able to look into the setup of the state. Start with your state code. Like, for example, I'm gonna just do something on random, right? We're gonna look up, I'm gonna pick a state, Texas. Texas Government Code. I didn't even spell it right. But the point is, Texas Government Code. It could have been called something else, but they have a Texas Government Code. So whatever state you're in, start by just spending a day going through this with your notepad, taking notes, reading about the setup, the design of the government, right? Because when you start reading about the legislative branch, the executive branch, ethics, the employees, you're going to start finding out different things that you can be like, man, I wish I knew that when I was in this situation. So start there, right? Now, let me go into this research. I'm just going to read this. Administrative procedure, also known as private process, is considered a non-judicial way of establishing facts that support judgment. For example, we completed an acquisition of commercial property. We gave due process by way of administrative proceeding. The results of the process establish our title on and for the record. Consequently, a private process rarely requires forcing files into a court docket. You can see our proceeding for land acquisition laid out here. And you can actually click this hot link here. For the premium members, you have access to that. Now, one question we are faced with, everybody is faced with, how can we get enforcement on a private process, presentment, or claim if a public officer refuses to acknowledge or record any of our documents? Our approach is to know which law applies to the public official, as I was saying before. You can't depend on codes and statutes to enforce policy against public officials when in most cases these things are not applicable to them. Take the following sections of the California Code for example. Now pay attention here, because this is probably the same in your state, but these are just some things out the California Government Code. Section 820.2, and I'm just, if you want to get the full context, you got to go read the full government code, as I suggested before. And you got to find out about your state's penal code, the penalty code, because I believe it's the penal code that connects to the penal sum that's secured by the penal bond or the surety bond. So those things are important. We'll talk about those later. But let me just demonstrate something here about the chess pieces on the board, the different people in the county or in the whole administration that you interface with, and why it's important to understand their limits, their restrictions, their capacities, how they move, what they can and cannot do. Because it's all about liability and insurance, you know, when it comes to navigating, and moving and making them move or making them perform. So in the Government Code of California, Section 820.2, it says, except as otherwise provided by statute, a public employee is not liable for an injury resulting from his act or omission, where the act or omission was the result of the exercise of the discretion vested in him, whether or not such discretion be abused. Did you hear that? And what does it mean? And did you hear that? Is what I would say. Now, what I'm about to break down is going to be very basic to some people, but to some people, it's not basic at all. And I hope that if you missed the things that I'm going to point out, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see it on the screen here. What do you see in this? I'm going to read it. Except, it's the first one here, except as otherwise provided by statute, a public employee is not liable for an injury resulting from his act or omission, where the act or omission was the result of the exercise of the discretion vested in him, whether or not such discretion be abused. Means if he has the right to practice some sort of discretion, even if he abuses the discretion, the public employee is not liable for an injury that results from his act. Dang. Right? Let's go to the next one. A public employee is not liable for injury caused by his instituting or prosecuting any judicial or administrative proceeding within the scope of his employment, even if he acts maliciously and without probable cause. Now, how are you going to win like that? They are not liable if they practice discretion and what is it? Cause an injury. A public employee is not liable for injury caused by instituting or prosecuting any judicial or administrative proceeding within the scope of his employment, even if he acts maliciously and without probable cause. So they can act maliciously, right? And what is this telling you? If you're standing at the counter or wherever you are, you're trying to get some business done, and they're acting maliciously, or they're even abusing their authority, doesn't necessarily mean that, that everything is on your side. I'm reading this out the code, right? Some of you are probably like, I can't believe this, right? But I want you to pay attention. What do you see in this? There's more into this, and I'm about to show it to you. California Government Code 821.8. A public employee is not liable for an injury arising out of his entry upon any property where such entry is expressly impliedly authorized by law. Nothing in this section exonerates an employee from liability or injury proximately caused by his own negligent or wrongful act or omission. So you got to look up these words. Now, first thing I want to ask you then is, what is a public employee? Because obviously these people are not liable. And what I want to share with you is a public employee is usually the first person that you interface with the majority of the time. Public employees do not have oaths of office. Public employees do not have they do not have duties or obligations to the Constitution of the United States. It's crazy. But they frustrate you. So understand the chess moves that you are, to understand how the chess pieces move. Let me continue to read here. Is there any real surprise why employees may treat you rude, with disregard, and even contempt? The duties and the obligations of public officials apparently are not the same as the employees who tend to frustrate and interfere in your proceedings. So then let's see to whom the responsibility and obligation attached. So what I'm showing you here is we were just looking at public employees. Now you have public officials, which is something different, right? Or at least they're treated differently. So if you are receiving a certain type of treatment from a public employee and you know for certain that you've passed all the formalities, because that's key. Usually the public employee is going to treat you with malice and spite every opportunity that they get. They're not going to do it for no reason, but they're going to look for a reason. And if they find a reason, then they're going to start treating you with malice and spite in all these different ways to get you frustrated, to get you out of character, to get you further away from the remedy or the solution that you're looking for. But if you already know this going in there, you're not going to get frustrated. You're just going to get to the bottom of it, find out what the issue is, and you're going to get it resolved. So let's see what the California Government Code says about public officers. And these are officers with oaths and insurance policies, constitutional officers who have the obligations to you to protect your rights, your constitutional rights, and your other rights, your civil rights, and all of these other rights. Whenever the official name of any principal officer is used in any law conferring power or imposing duties or liabilities, it includes deputies. So the principal officer is like a principal officer on a surety bond, basically. Principal officer being a sheriff, recorder, auditor, treasurer, I don't know, maybe commissioner. I'm not sure. But these are principal officers. These are people who take the constitutional oath. These are the people who have, notice what it says here, these key words. Duties, that's dealing with what? Equity. Dealing with what? Bonds, penal sums. Those are the equities. So we're talking about duties. But the equities and the insurances is tied to the oath. I think we'll see that later in this, on this actual page right here. You know, so let's read that one more time. Whenever the official name of any principal officer, for example, the sheriff of LA County, I don't remember his name, the court recorder of LA County, or any county, you know, in California for that matter. Those are the principal officers. But in reality, you or we, the people, will probably never, ever, ever, ever do business with the principal officer. So this is very important. It's telling you that the duties and the liabilities, the ones who have the obligation to perform, is the deputies, right? All of these principal officers have numerous deputies that operate throughout the county, throughout the district, and these are the people with the responsibilities, the duties, and the liabilities. So ultimately, you don't want to be wasting these people's time, but if it is something and it pertains to your rights, and if it comes down to your rights potentially being violated, you need to be dealing with the deputies under their constitutional oath and their obligation, their constitutional obligations. So let's look at California Government Code Section 1501. Condition of an official bond, which all of the principal officers or official officers or government officers, public officials, they have. The condition of an official bond shall be that the principal will well, truly, and faithfully perform all official duties then required of him by law, and also all such additional duties as may be imposed on him by an existing law of the state or law enacted subsequently to the execution of the bond. But just as I was trying to show you before, you got to really be able to know what you're reading. When you see it says these employees are not liable, okay, the question comes off, if the employees are not liable, who is liable, right? And then you find out, well, the principal officers are always liable, but we never do business with the principal officers. The deputies are liable, and there's a deputy at the head of all these offices. Now again, don't just waste their time because you found this information out. Only use this information if you need to know it, understand the construction. But what I just seen in here, I already knew that the condition of the official bond, and we're talking about like your county blanket insurance policy or whatever that indemnity bond is that your principal officers in your county use, right? It is that they will faithfully perform the official duties then required of them by law, and also such additional duties as may be imposed on him by an existing law of the state. We need to pay attention to the fact that their official bond is also for them to faithfully carry out any additional duty that may be imposed on them, such as a nominee or fiduciary appointment, by an existing law of the state, Powers of Appointment Act. I was actually looking for how that tied in, but that's how it ties in right there. So it becomes important to accept an oath of office. And I haven't made completely clear why, but we'll try to get through all of that in here. So I'm going to read this one more time. California Government Code Section 1501. The condition of an official bond shall be that the principal will well, truly, and faithfully perform all official duties. Official duties, that's important. Then required of him by law, and also such additional duties as may be imposed on him by an existing law of the state or law enacted subsequently to the execution of the bond. A couple of things here. They're talking about laws of the state or law enacted subsequently. Notice they use the term law enacted. This is where you get the difference between your statutes and your codes and your regulations, and the laws are enacted by the legislative body of the state. So they're dealing with additional duties may be imposed on him by laws. So I believe the Powers of Appointment Act is a law. So you may be able to appoint a principal officer to carry out certain business if it relates to his official duties. Now, what are those official duties? If you ask me, is my understanding that those official duties are everything that is stated forth in the oath of office, which is the constitutional oath. Let me scroll down and see if I put that oath in here. Here it is. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation. See, from the obligations, now we have duties. Now we get into the equity. Now we get into the bond. And you can read the rest of this, but what I want to point out is what you have to understand, because we're dealing with trying to anchor ourselves and understand how to navigate so we can get our documents recorded, whatever it is, so we can, get through the barriers that have been set up. What this is telling us is there's an official bond put in place. This oath, and this is crazy because a lot of people in California are foreigners and they don't really understand how this whole constitutional thing works. So here you have it. They swore to this, so this is their oath. This is their obligations. So that tells you that if you want to understand how to make them move, you have to deal with their obligation. Their obligation, they mentioned two things in here. Constitution of the United States, Constitution of the State of California. This is where your rights come from in this regard when it comes to making them perform. Because basically the surety bond is also a performance bond. It's to ensure or guarantee their performance. Your rights come from the Constitution of the United States. Your rights come from the State of California. But also when you look at the laws and you look at the condition of the bond, as it said, also from the laws of California. So when it comes to giving them the authority to act and compelling them to act, you have to be dealing with, one, a constitutional right of yours. For example, what are your constitutional rights? They're in the Bill of Rights, and one deals with the right to have protection and security of property. So that would include recording a deed, which is the security interest in a property. These are related to the official duties. As of course, somebody like a recorder will have the official duties of the office. So you just have to really look at these things, right? I'm just putting, they're right out here. I'm not going to spend no more time talking about it. We jumped into that one long enough. Excuse me. Next, 1504, the obligation of the bond. The official bond executed by any officer pursuant to the law is in force and obligatory upon the principals and surety therein for breaches of the conditions therefore committed, whether such breaches are committed or suffered by the principal officer, his deputy, or clerk, except that no, I clipped this, so I gotta get the rest of that. But now this is interesting here. Okay, I don't know what the rest of it said. You know, just go look it up though. California Government Code 1504. I'll come in here and correct this and add the rest of it. California Government Code 1505. Whenever, except in criminal prosecutions and special penalty, forfeiture or liability is imposed on any officer. You hear that? Whenever liability is imposed on any officer, including all the constitutional obligations and things of the such, the liability therefore attaches to the official bond of the officer and to the principal and the sureties thereon. Was that what I was looking for? No. Basically, the one that I was looking for is, here it is right here. I already said it. Whenever the official name includes the principal officer, it also includes the deputies. So I hope what you understand from here is, now when you're looking at this whole picture, the employees that you deal with on a first defense, first line basis, they're probably going to frustrate you. They're going to take every opportunity they can. If they see that you're doing something wrong, they're probably not going to tell you what you're doing wrong. They're just going to take a mental note of it, and then they're going to harass you to make you think that they just don't like you. They don't want to even direct your attention to the fact that there's a problem with your documentation. They just want to divert your attention into anger or frustration that they don't like you. And they do it because it's strategic to keep you from getting your things recorded the proper way, when in reality, you know, that's not in the best benefit of the county that is supposed to be serving the people, you know. And at the same time, they can do it in such a way where it's no liability to them, because they say, oh, we covered the liability part. These are what your elected officers and your public officers are for. But it's not our problem if you don't understand the policy and the procedures that we have posted and that we've made public. So I hope that helps out a little bit. Let me see what else here. California Constitution, Article 1, Section 1. All people are by nature free and independent and have inalienable rights. Among these are the rights of protecting property and pursuing and obtaining safety, happiness, and privacy. So this is a constitutional right. A principal officer or a constitutional officer has sworn to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution for California. That makes protecting these property rights a part of his official duties. You see what I'm saying? Now, if this clear presentation that I demonstrated to you was presented to a principal officer in a clear, concise manner, and you knew that the liability automatically attached to his surety bond, that's something that I don't know if we're going to be able to get into in here, but I'm going to direct you to do the research on that, which is basically under the UCC Article 9. Look at, look up under 9, Article 9, perfection of security interest in collateral where a financing statement is not required. Basically, when you research Article 9, you'll understand that the official oath of office, the written oath of office that you can request with the FOIA request that they can give you on a record, the oath in the case of the principal officer, but in the case of a deputy, it's the oath and the appointment letter. Don't forget those two things, the oath and the appointment letter. Those two things because the deputy officer is also going to have the constitutional oath. Those two things, your appointment and acceptance of those items from my research automatically attaches your claim to the supporting collateral, which is the surety bond. And to understand that, just like I said, get into your Article 9 Uniform Commercial Code and research perfection of security interests where a financing statement is not required. And that's going to lead you through the little codes and the links, and you'll kind of see what you have. Now, I mention that to say, if push come to shove and you didn't get remedy, then you may be entitled to, and you probably should perfect a private administrative claim, a lien on that appointment letter and the supporting obligation, which is the underwriting indemnity bond and all of that. Finally, if I can get you to pay attention and look at your screen real quick, I really want to encourage you to join the $32 per month subscription. You do so just by clicking membership plan, and you can either do it by Stripe or PayPal. But anyways, you can do it right here, and that'll give you unrestricted access to all the templates. For example, take the master file. You can see the work that we put into this. The way this is set up is you have a total of 6 videos up here. Some of them are still being worked on, as you can see right here. Basically, you can click these videos, you can watch these videos, and it'll pretty much give you a tutorial or outline as to the research and how we went about executing these instruments that deal with personal status correction. Now down here where you see the actual outline, these are actual templates, and they're in PDF format and Word document format. So you can download the templates, you can edit them, you can put your personal information in there, add your clauses, add the different things that's necessary to make it personal. These are all a foundational point to start from. But the video works as the guide, and these steps, you will see they correlate with the information that's being spoken about in the videos. So this is kind of your follow along. And then of course, let's take for example let's look at the revocable trust. So we'll click it. And what you have here, you see on the screen, this is a PDF version of that instrument. But of course, you have to watch the videos to get the context of what's being discussed. And we try to do that not just with the master file, with all areas of the site, and some things we're still working on and other things we will be actively working on. So this is some of the times why I'm not available, because I'm doing this type of research. So the best way to get my availability is join the premium subscription group, because that creates a little bit of an obligation for me to give you some type of response as long as it's not abused. You know, the best benefit is having access to the templates and the outlines, not necessarily having access to my time. Alright, so thank you. Visit thctrust.org, click the links below this video, subscribe, sign up, and give me up to 24 hours to update your permissions. Peace.